behalf of the Jewish Law Student Association at Fordham Law School, I'd like to welcome everyone in attendance today. It is my understanding that this event has attracted curious minds with a variety of viewpoints. In my mind, this event is already a success, as there promises to be an informative and intellectually stimulating presentation, followed by an open-minded question and answer session. I would like to thank our fellow law student groups for co-sponsoring this event. These groups include Fordham Law Democrats, Fordham Law Republicans, the Federalist Society, the Black Law Student Association, the International Law Journal, the Media Entertainment Law Society, the Fordham Men's Society, and also the Jewish Activism Group. I want to be clear that none of the groups have adopted any particular view or stance on the issues that will be discussed. They all have, however, expressed to me their desire to encourage an open dialogue regarding international issues of law and policy. For that, I thank them. I would also like to thank and welcome Hasbara Fellowships, as this program would not have been possible if not for its support and vision. Hasbara Fellowships educates and trains university students to be effective activists on their campuses. So far, Hasbara Fellowships has trained over 1,400 students on over 250 campuses. The format of the event will be as follows. Professor Dershowitz will speak for about 30 minutes. Following the presentation, we will have a question and answer session. Students will be given priority for asking questions. Questions should be limited to 30 to 40 seconds maximum. After Professor Dershowitz gives his answer, we would like you to have about 20 to 30 seconds for a rebuttal or comment. There will be a microphone in each of the end aisles for students to meet the line up to ask those questions. The event will come to a close at 5:45, as we must clear the room by 6, so that setup can promptly begin for another program. For your information, this program is being video recorded and will be posted online shortly after we conclude. If you need to leave in the middle, please use the rear exits at the top of the room. I'm getting there. In the best interest of everyone in this room, security is present throughout the amphitheater. If there are any interruptions, security will promptly ask you to leave. Lastly, please turn off your cell phones. Please give Professor Dershowitz and the questioners the respect that each of them deserve. Now to move on to the subject matter of the program. On April 3, 2009, the President of the Human Rights Council established an international, independent, fact-finding mission with the mandate, quote, to investigate all violations of international human rights law and international humanitarian law that might have been committed at any time in the context of the military operations that were conducted in Gaza during the period from 27 December 2008 and 18 January 2009, whether before, during, or after, end quote. The mission was headed by Justice Richard Goldstone, former member of the South African Constitutional Court and former chief prosecutor of the International Criminal Tribunals for the former Yugoslavia and Rwanda. The resulting report of the mission quickly became known as the Goldstone Report. Justice Goldstone is currently the Lakin-Kilkenny Distinguished Visiting Professor of Law here at Fordham. I, along with my fellow organizers, had originally intended this to be a debate, but Justice Goldstone respectfully declined our invitation. We have invited Professor Alan Dershowitz of Harvard Law School to comment on the Goldstone Report. Professor Alan M. Dershowitz is native to nearby Brooklyn and is one of the nation's most distinguished defenders of individual rights. He graduated from Yeshiva University High School and Brooklyn College. At Yale Law School, he graduated first in his class and served as editor-in-chief of the Yale Law Journal. After clerking for Chief Judge David Bazelon and Justice Arthur Goldberg, he was appointed to the Harvard Law School faculty at age 25 and became a full professor at age 28, the youngest in school history. Professor Dershowitz has lectured throughout the country and around the world to more than 1 million people, from Carnegie Hall to the Kremlin. In 1988, he served as visiting professor of law at Hebrew University in Jerusalem and lectured in Israel on civil liberties during times of crisis. He has been active in the American Civil Liberties Union and the Anti-Defamation League of B'nai B'rith. In 1983, the Anti-Defamation League of B'nai B'rith presented him with the William O. Douglas First Amendment Award for his compassionate, eloquent leadership and persistent advocacy in the struggle for civil and human rights. In presenting the award, Nobel laureate Elie Wiesel said, If there had been a few people like Alan Dershowitz during the 1930s and 1940s, the history of the European Jewry might have been different. The New York Criminal Bar Association honored him for his outstanding contribution as a scholar and dedicated defender of human rights. I am pleased and honored to introduce Professor Alan Dershowitz.
I wish you were clapping both for me and for Judge Goldstone. I'm chagrined by the fact that he turned down the opportunity to defend the Goldstone report. This could have been a very interesting conversation and debate. Judge Goldstone has accused many of his critics of not having read the report, but when somebody was invited, he was invited to debate somebody who not only had read the report, but had read it twice, had studied it, analyzed it, and gone over it as a lawyer would go over a legal brief. He declined that opportunity, though he's accepted many opportunities to be on television and answer questions from people who obviously had not read the report. So I hope maybe there'll be an opportunity in the future. He's been invited to come to Harvard Law School to engage in a debate, and perhaps at some point he'll do so. I am also a bit chagrined that the administration of this law school has been less than fully encouraging of today's event, and I'm very pleased that the sponsors have been as persistent as they have been. After all, what could be more educational for law students, for students at the university, than to hear two sides of a contentious and divisive issue, or if not two sides, at least hear a rebuttal and a critique so that people can go back and read the material and decide for themselves. And I see this as really an opening wedge in a conversation. I expect that after today's conversation, many of you will want to go back and read the Goldstone report and check what I've said, check what I've said against Google, and compare my analysis with that of the report, and consider it part of an ongoing educational process. As was mentioned by the chairman, I encourage questions. I encourage hostile, critical questions. They needn't be questions, they can be statements as long as they're limited, so that everybody has a chance to respond, and everybody who asks a question will have a chance to do a follow-up. So I think nobody will leave here today not having felt that they've not had an opportunity at least to challenge my perspective, though I think many of us are upset that we haven't had an opportunity face-to-face to challenge Judge Goldstone's perspective. So I started thinking about the Goldstone report even before Goldstone was appointed. It was obvious during the Gaza war that there would be some kind of investigation, some kind of commission, and I wrote a series of articles which Judge Goldstone had access to, in which I asked the question over and over again, what could and should Israel have done lawfully and consistent with international law to protect its civilians against rocket attacks that were targeting its civilians? My wife was here today with me, and I went to Sderot. I think it was a year and a half ago. It was Purim a year and a half ago. We were there for the Purim celebration, and a rocket landed not far from us. We saw the traumatic effect. My wife was a PhD in neuropsychology and developmental psychology, and she certainly saw the incredible traumatic effect that rockets landing in children's backyards, near school buses, near schoolyards, have had. Some psychologists have estimated that 1 million Jewish kids may have been traumatized, and many of them developed post-traumatic stress syndrome. And for 8 years, rockets rained down on Israeli civilians. These were not military rockets, these were anti-personnel rockets. Many of them loaded with a kind of shrapnel that spreads and is designed to cause as much civilian injury as possible.